And we're live! Hello and welcome to the first episode of Novelty Show, where we are going to be meeting bi-weekly every other Sunday for now to talk about all things writing and publishing. We're going to spill all the tea, spill all the truth, because tea means truth. I know there's been some stuff going around how like all tea is drama, but it's not about drama. We just want to talk about like honest experiences with writing and publishing. And today is episode 1. We're talking all about NaNoWriMo. My name is Kat. You are here on my channel. And now let's get some intros from the other lovely ladies here.
Hi, I'm Alexa Dunn. I'm a young adult author, and my channel is Alexa Dunn. I talk about writing and craft and being an author, and yay, I'm so excited. And I'm not doing NaNoWriMo, so I'm the rebel of the chat, or one of them, actually.
And my name is Lainey. I have the channel Ginger Reads Lainey. I do videos on books and writing, and I am doing NaNoWriMo, but kind of just low-key NaNoWriMo this year.
So we're all rebels. Okay, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Rebels. Yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. But to start us off, I thought maybe we could talk about how we all like first heard about NaNoWriMo and like what initially grabbed our interest to like participate. Anyone want to start?
You're challenging me. You're making me go way back, and I
can go.
Yeah, I have a yeah.
So I discovered NaNoWriMo a long time ago. It was like the end of 2008. I discovered it like almost at the end of November. So it was too late for me to participate that year. It was the end of 2009. No, it was the end of 2008. Wow, 10 years ago. So it was late for me to participate that year, but I was like looking forward to it all the next year. And I've done it almost every November since. Like I've skipped a couple of Novembers, but I did a couple of Camp NaNoWriMo sessions, which I feel like kind of made up for it a little bit. But yeah, I love NaNoWriMo. Like I love drafting and I love fast drafting. Like getting the first draft out as fast as possible is a method that really works for me. So that's like why I keep coming back to NaNoWriMo. I would want to draft fast even if I wasn't doing NaNoWriMo.
Nice. I think it could have been 2009. It could have been 2010. I don't know. And I don't know who it was. It was probably a critique partner. I think the first time I tried and failed was probably 2011. That counts. Yeah. I've only done it successfully once. So maybe it's 2012. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember how I heard of NaNoWriMo. I think it started when I was in college. Like everybody in my creative writing classes were like, are you doing Nano this year? And I'm like, I have no idea what that is. But I never was able to participate until after I graduated from college because I'm horrible with time management. So I can't do that and do my schoolwork at the same time. And so 2014 was the first time I tried, and I've done it every year since 2014. But I've only won 3 times. I didn't win in 2015, but I won every other year I participated in.
That's the only year I won, Lainey. It's like I got your mojo. The rest of the time, I have not.
I'm like half for half. Like I've participated like maybe 9 times, and I've won like 4 or 5. I have a lot of drafts that are in desperate need of repair and revision. But yeah, okay. So we talked a little bit about like how many times we've done NaNoWriMo and won already. So let's talk a little bit about what we're doing for NaNoWriMo this year. We're all kind of being NaNoWriMo rebels, like not doing the exact 50,000 words in 30 days. So yeah, what are you doing for NaNoWriMo this year, Alexa?
I was going to do it. I was going to half-ass it. And then I decided I was a crazy person. So I just turned in my second book on the 18th of October. And I realized 2 days before November 1, I should probably take a longer break than 2 weeks. So I'm not even really going to half-ass it. I'm going to read all month. And so I'm basically not doing it. but I've been in a reading slump for a really long time. And so I'm going to refill my well by reading a ton of YA. And doing some revision. I have some revision to do on my Nano project from 2 years ago, which I put on hold to publish books. So that's the book I'm coming back to, but I'm not really writing. I'm a terrible person. It's fine. It's great.
No, you need breaks. Breaks are good. And like what Lainey was saying earlier about how she couldn't do NaNoWriMo while she was still in college, like November is a very busy month for a lot of people. Like,
yeah,
an ideal month to like put your life on hold and spend hours a day writing. But yeah. Okay, Lainey, what are you doing for Nano this year?
So I'm drafting something new, and it's kind of like it's YA fantasy. The Borgia family meets Cruel Intentions, and it's totally different than what I've written before. I'm like writing in like first person. I've never done that, so it's more of just like having fun with it. But I'm not sure how far into it I'm going to be able to get because, well, I got into Author Mentor Match, and my mentor is giving me my edit letter in mid-November. So I might have to switch gears and go back to my previous project to start revising it again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I am kind of doing NaNoWriMo. I just kind of did a NaNoWriMo like in September and October. I drafted a book of 50,000 words over like 5 weeks, a little bit longer than NaNoWriMo time. And then I took a couple weeks break from it. And in November is when I'm like starting my next draft. So I have started like, I'm kind of revising, but it's also just like a cleanup revision. Like I'm not doing any in-depth changes. And yeah, it's going okay so far. I'm already behind, but it's fine.
It's fine. And I just saw a comment that someone had planned to do it and they haven't done any writing yet. And so they'll try it next year. And I just want to say it's not too late. So I wrote Brightly Burning during NaNoWriMo, and I didn't decide to do it till November 3rd. And I still NaNoWriMo. That's the only one where I hit my goal. So it is not too late. You can catch up. I just want to give everyone that pep talk. If like your first couple days haven't been stellar, you can definitely catch up.
Yeah, and
possible.
Your goal isn't catching up, you could start NaNoWriMo right now with a word count goal of like 40,000 or 40,000. Exactly. And you could just do it for the rest of the month starting now, and you'll still end up with a lot. Like you might not hit 50K, but don't. We're on day 4. Like it's too soon.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, and so the NaNoWriMo I did 2 years ago, the book I'm coming back to, I had to stop because I was on submission, and I realized towards the end of the month that I was going to have to revise Brightly Burning. And so I stopped my NaNoWriMo book because I was like, I have to get back into space. But I wrote 23,000 words of that book in NaNoWriMo. So I still accomplished something. And now I have a complete first act. Like words are you're never actually failing because you're always getting something on the page. It's always good work that you do. So that's how I think of it.
Yeah, there's like always something to like the community itself is like hopping during this time of the month.
That's why I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really pushes me forward to like get the most words and just like really push myself in my writing.
Yeah. And that's why I love the rise of camp NaNoWriMo, because that wasn't as big a thing years ago, but it's more people do it now. I camped NaNoWriMo at the beginning of The Stars We Steal, and that was really helpful because I joined a cabin, I was with friends, and it's July for me personally is a much better month than November for drafting. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, or April. Why did they choose November? I actually think that's the burning question. Who in their right mind would choose November? Why?
Okay, so since we've all like done NaNoWriMo, like a legit NaNoWriMo, like a 50K in 30 days. Yeah. Okay. So what's some of your guys' best NaNoWriMo advice? Like, what kind of stuff has like helped you the most to get through NaNoWriMo? What can you offer to people who are doing their first NaNoWriMo?
Word sprints.
Yeah, word sprints. Definitely.
And, it's not necessarily about winning, but just the act of participating. Like I found like it's better to write 240 words during a word sprint than no words. Yeah. And it's a great way to like, you by breaking it up into those little segments, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half hour, and competing, I don't know, it just, the words add up. It's magic. That helped me finish my Nano novel, Word Sprints.
Yeah.
Especially the Twitter. The Twitter handle with Nano sprints or something, that was so helpful for me in finishing. And every time I won won because of how they pushed and did the Twitter sprints, for sure.
Yeah, I would say along with Twitter sprints, like just leaning into the community side of things, like just immersing yourself with all these other people who are like excited about writing and talking about writing. Like there's just so much great like NaNoWriMo energy. It's abundant this time of year. And also falling behind is very discouraging. Like you miss a day or two and all of a sudden you're 5,000 words behind and it feels like a lot. So I think another piece of good advice is to try to write every single day, even if you can't write the full 1667 words. Like if you can write a couple hundred and just try not to fall behind very much, then like it's much easier to make it up. And also to kind of look at each day as like a new day to hit the words. Like don't look at a day as I'm 5,000 behind. Look at it as I need to hit my goal for just today. Like, because if you get caught in this like struggle of trying to catch up, it can just like downward spiral, and then you feel bad and you want to give up and you quit NaNoWriMo.
Another thing that I find helps word count tracking, like actually tracking progress, partly because I am competitive with myself, but I love to see the progress. So using the official Nano one helps. And then I've used my planners when I've done it. So I pulled it up. This is from last year, if you can kind of see that. I didn't actually Nano. I was just actively drafting my book, but I use stickers. I use star stickers for every 500 words. So I find that helps me because it's like seeing progress makes it more real to me.
I also had to come up with like a reward system. And that helps a lot too. So like every time I hit 5,000, I'd be able to watch the next episode on the Netflix show that I'm currently watching, or I was able to go out and get Taco Bell or something like that. So I liked the goal thing.
Yeah. I'm very food motivated as well. I have in the past done cookies and wine as my rewards because I'm a grown up. It's great.
But one of my not my first NaNoWriMo, the one that I like first did like a vlog series for, NaNoWriMo 2012. I did candy rewards, but I put it on my audience, where like I would see how many of my NaNoWriMo friends were on track and how many were behind, and I got a candy reward for everyone who was like on track, subtracted from the ones who were behind. So when I didn't have as many NaNoWriMo friends, like I couldn't eat it now, or I'd have to eat like 100 pieces of candy.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. And I got to like put pressure on the people watching me. Like, I need you guys to stay on track so I get candy.
And I just saw a comment from Kate Spivey about going to the physical write-ins. That's definitely a great idea. I have never done that in the past, but I would now because I'm more brave about talking to human beings now. I went to one yesterday, actually, even though I'm not NaNoWriMoing. But there's something about being in a room of like a dozen people or more, and you're just all writing at the same time. It's kind of magical.
Yeah, I did that for the first time last year too, and it helped a lot. Yeah.
And most cities have NaNoWriMo write-ins, and they have information about them on the website. There's always one that's actually really close to my house in LA, and I've always been too scared to go. So I've just never gone.
Yeah, I had to psych myself up to go to it last year, and then I did, and I felt like it was more rewarding, and I'm happy I did it.
Maybe I need to check one out. I've never been to a write-in. But I do live in a small town, so like the nearest write-in is going to be like an hour away at least, which is daunting on top of the like braving a write-in with other people. But I have done the Night of Writing Dangerously, which is like the NaNoWriMo celebration event that takes place in San Francisco every year. And that is awesome. I think this year is the last year they're doing it, and unfortunately, I don't think I can go.
Oh, that's sad.
It's a really great event. It's just a couple hundred writers in this ballroom, and everyone tops, and they just spend like 4 or 5 hours sprinting all night long in like a big room full of people celebrating NaNoWriMo. It was really great.
Wow. Well, because they're based in NorCal, so that's why they would do that there. Yeah.
2 hours away from me, which is painful because like NaNoWriMo is so close.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a little bit about like good NaNoWriMo advice. Have you heard any bad NaNoWriMo advice?
Oh yeah.
What do we got?
Isn't there advice? I try not to actually look at the advice because it makes me mad, but I'm pretty sure I've seen people give the advice of like, put in song lyrics to fill up words and like, just like putting anything down to make your word count. I personally think that's a waste of time. As important as it is to finish a draft, which is obviously the goal, or to get close to finishing a draft. When I nanoed, that was only half my book. I personally am the kind of writer where I don't like wasting words. Even if I rewrite them later, I think filler for Nano is not productive or helpful for writers, personally. I think that's bad advice, writing nonsense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's good advice for people who are maybe doing NaNoWriMo for the first time, have never written anything before, and they need kind of a crutch like that to rely on. But yeah, a lot of the like word count, like buffer hacks always kind of seemed pointless to me. Like, why would you waste so much time like using a character's full first, middle, and last name instead of their first name?
Oh gosh.
Word count. It's definitely going to get deleted. And while the point of Nano is not to like make sure everything is like down perfectly, it seems kind of wasteful to just write nothing.
Yeah. And we have some people suggesting some. I can't tell if this is bad advice that they're offering or just advice. There's don't use contractions, which true would help, but you're just going to fix it later unless it's part of your world building that people don't use contractions. And to me, that's just extra time for editing. And then the other piece of advice is to have side characters who are very chatty, that it fills a lot of dialogue. That actually that's pretty good advice. Have people talk is actually really good.
Yeah, that's
the
not
other
a gimmicky thing. Like just like
yeah,
lean into dialogue. That's fine advice. You can do that's a good work.
That's good. That's good. I think the contractions one, I have heard that advice before, and I'm real on the fence about it. Like I said, because I think you just edit later, and you're creating work for yourself no matter what. When you write a fast draft, you're creating work for revision. Why would you create extra work is how I feel. I'm like, it's already going to be hard. Like, yeah.
Honestly,
so I guess you can go ahead.
I think the thing with contractions is like, I would only use that if I was trying to differentiate another character's speech from other people, which that's also kind of a crutch that you see a lot in like high fantasy. If someone is like serious and they don't use any contractions, it's kind of just like a very easy sort of give them something different about their dialogue. But yeah, I think that can work if it's like a part of their character, but just doing it to increase your word count is not helpful.
Exactly. But actually, I just thought of a good piece of advice that, I mean, I don't do it. It doesn't work for me because of the kind of writer I am, but this does help a lot of people with fast drafting. If you're stuck somewhere, just like write a short summary for yourself that you can come back to, like TK, the main character has a fight with their best friend. I personally would consider that pretty good advice for fast drafting because it allows you to move on, but know what happens in the part that you're skipping over. Because I do think that with Nano, sometimes when the words are hard, it means you just have to push harder and write words. And sometimes when the words are hard, you're writing the wrong part of the book. Just skip ahead to somewhere where you are motivated to write and do that.
Yeah, I think kind of related to what you're saying, especially in my rough drafts, I do this. Brackets, where I'll say like the description of the room goes here because I don't want to like describe like this location. I just write like description of room and then move on. And then I do have to go back and fix that, but it just allows me to like keep momentum.
Yeah, there's one piece of advice I feel like can kind of go with both good advice and bad advice. And I've done both of these at different times of the year. Like kind of take your time so you don't avoid burnout. But then on the flip side is to write as much as you can every single day, like go big. And I've done those both times, but I think it depends on what kind of mindset you're in for the project, maybe. But I mean, last year I went big every single day and it worked out in my favor, but trying to go big every single day a couple years ago did not work for me at all.
Yeah. That's like about assessing. Alexa, you mentioned something like assessing realistic life expectations and like goals around NaNoWriMo. Like it's about knowing what you can do and what's possible for you. Like I can do both ways as well. Like you know, spend some time like going all out, like doing a 10K day, stuff like that. But I cannot maintain that. And like other times I can maybe get a couple hundred words a day. And it's just about like the balance and knowing what works for you and what will work during a certain time period.
And that's just good advice, period. And so much of this advice applies outside of Nano. Every book is different, and you should kind of try to follow the flow of what your body and your mind and your book is telling you. Because same, like I like Brightly Burning, my only Nano novel, my only success. I went full out and it worked really well. Like I still don't know how I did it. But the next book I wrote it just wasn't working. I tried Camp NaNoWriMo. I was like, this is not going to be a fast draft. And it's just different for every book and every project and every Nano.
Yeah, that's kind of what I just wanted to ask you guys after you mentioned that. Like, how different is your process from book to book? Like, do you approach everyone very differently, or has your process stayed kind of the same?
For me, Brightly Burning is my anomaly. I wrote that in 3 months. I wrote every single day for 3 months. It was 104,000 words, and I still don't know how I did it. I've like afterwards, it was like a fugue state. I don't remember. But my others are all basically pretty similar. It takes 9 months to a year to write a draft for me. I need to get faster. It's fine. I have pantsing problems though, and that's a whole other conversation.
And yeah, it's funny. The 9 months, your book is much more polished than a NaNoWriMo draft. So
you'd think that, but that's what makes me so mad.
Oh no.
Honestly, the first draft of Brightly Burning was probably better than the first draft of The Stars We Steal, which took me 9 months. But in fairness, it's because Brightly Burning is a very faithful Jane Eyre adaptation. Actually, there's my pro tip for Nano. Do a retelling. Do a very faithful retelling if you're a pantser, because that way you have an outline, but you don't have to outline. That helps me. So yeah, fast doesn't necessarily mean worse for me. And yeah, I'm kind of mad at myself that I can't write that fast again. We'll see.
Yeah, so Pair Prides for me, that's the manuscript that got me into Author Mentor Match. I also wrote that in 3 months, and that was the fastest I've ever drafted a first draft before. I also wrote 60,000 words last year during NaNoWriMo. Like I was pretty much possessed. So, but yeah, like that was definitely my anomaly as well. And like I wish I could replicate that, because then I rewrote one of my other novels through February through June, and that took me five and a half months, and that's like usually my typical first draft. I feel like it takes me about 5 to 6 months to write a first draft.
That's pretty fast, actually. Let's just talk about speeds briefly so everyone feels better about themselves. Anyone who writes a book in less than 3 months, that is a fast draft. And then there are unicorns. I know someone who wrote a first draft of a book in 10 days. I can't talk to her anymore. But anything less than 6 months is a completely average, acceptable, and normal amount of time to write a book. And even honestly, 9 months is pretty normal too. I'm just beating myself up because I wish I wrote faster.
Yeah, I mean, I would say under a year.
Anything under a year, yeah.
Draft is like fine. And if you're one of those edit as you go writers and your first drafts are like very polished, then you could even go over a year, and like that's okay too. Yeah, don't
Kirsten White's a unicorn, FYI everyone. I love her, but she's a unicorn. I actually asked her for advice on how to write faster, and she couldn't even explain it. I was like, you're just amazing, and I can't do that.
Okay, I see a couple of questions about Scrivener. So do you guys both use Scrivener?
I love it. I'm a diehard. Yeah. And I use it because of Nano, actually. when was my first Nano? I don't remember. It was either 2012 or 2013. And I downloaded the trial of Scrivener for Nano. There was a Nano specific one. And when Nano was over, I didn't win. So I didn't get the deep discount, but I got like 15% off or 20% off. Best investment I've made in my entire life was paying for Scrivener. Changed my life.
I totally agree. And also I want to shout out that free trial of Scrivener. I believe that they have an extended offer for NaNoWriMo. So like you could download a free trial of Scrivener right now that would last you like through, I think, mid-December, and try it out if you want to. Anyone yeah.
Yeah, I use Scrivener too, but I actually don't use it until I start revising. Like I'll draft in Google Docs because yeah, like one I like write during work, probably when I shouldn't, but I write during work. So it's easier to bring up Google Docs and just like write in like an extra tab or whatever. And then once I finish that first draft, it also helps me not going back at all, like going back to edit, because I don't like to edit while I'm drafting. So I can't easily go back to, I don't know, chapter 13 when I'm on chapter 30. So I'll wait until after I finish it, then I transfer it all into Scrivener, and I find that's easier to revise because I'm able to click around in the different chapters and everything. And then I'll stay in Scrivener.
That is really interesting to me because I have like the reverse approach. I will draft in Scrivener so I can like jump around and just kind of like write madly wherever. But then when I do a chronological draft, I do that in like Word or Google Drive, and I go straight through so I can't jump around.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting. I do everything in Scrivener until I get to line edits. When I get to line edits, I switch to Word. Because once with publishing, you have to do your copy edits in Word. So it's just easier to transition myself to Word at a certain point. And actually, I have a Scrivener question for Kat.
What's up?
Because I watched all your vlogs. How do you set it up to do the word count goals per chapter? Because I am clearly a noob when it comes to Scrivener. I've used it for like 5 years, and I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I want to address two other comments.
Because that would be so helpful for NaNoWriMo, right? That would be.
I saw a comment from Brooke who asked if I thought about making a video on like Scrivener secrets. And then I also saw one from Riley who says that she only uses like 20% of the Scrivener features. And same, like
I maybe use 10%.
my word count charts that I was doing during my last draft, like I discovered that like 2 months ago, and I've been using Scrivener for 10 years.
Well,
like, I'm always
teach me.
Weird.
Yeah, I just learned how to
make
color
a video.
code. Like,
I'm
it's so hard.
A video showing like all the Scrivener secrets I've discovered. Because yeah, you can set like word count goals, and then you can like look at them, like comparing them against each other. Although I do use an old version of Scrivener that I haven't updated in like 5 years because I don't like change. So the might be slightly different.
Well, I'm on a PC, so my version is probably the same as your old Mac version.
Right, and if you're on PC, then you don't get like the different colors in the charts. Like I've seen a couple people who tweet at me, and they're like, "It's all just like a solid blue. Like it's not like."
Well, that upsets me.
I know.
Still not gonna buy a Mac though.
Yeah, same.
All right, so we've skipped around our questions a little bit here, but let's talk about some pros and cons of NaNoWriMo, because there are definitely pros and cons to this event. Anyone have any that immediately come to mind?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest pros is that all of the times I've won, they've all been major drafts in my life of me trying to get published. So I don't feel like I would be where I'm at yet today in my writing if I didn't have NaNoWriMo to get the first draft out of the way. Not that I finished the first draft during NaNoWriMo, because I don't, but I mean, it gets me halfway there. And I think it would take me longer if I didn't do it during NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Huge pro is just making serious headway on projects that I need to get done. And that actually, I think, leads us to a con that is worth discussing, because the con, I think, is NaNoWriMo has led a lot of people to believe that 50,000 words is a novel. It can be, but it isn't most of the time. Meaning, in most genres, 50K is not a novel. So meaning you're not done when you hit 50K. And I think that a lot of us, when you're kind of like Nano 201, like you're past basic Nano. We know this. We know that it's a tool to get a major jump start on a novel, but it's not finishing the novel. It's certainly not finishing it in terms of you have to revise. So I think a con to Nano is that it has widely perpetuated the idea that 50K is a novel and that's it, you're done, you wrote a novel. And people query their Nano novels in December. Don't do it.
Yeah, I think a big pro is, like you said, just getting in a good habit. Like it really helps you develop a good writing habit. But then on the flip side, I think a big con is that, NaNoWriMo doesn't work for everyone. Fast drafting doesn't work for everyone. And I think you know that a lot of people have felt pressure because of that. Like they feel like they're doing something wrong. Their process is wrong because NaNoWriMo stresses them out. They can't write every day. They can't write almost 2,000 words a day. And so they feel like, well, I'm like not a real writer. Or I'm not good enough because I can't do NaNoWriMo pace. But that is absolutely not the case. I think NaNoWriMo is a great thing for people to try, especially if you aren't familiar with your process yet and you're still like a new writer and developing your process. But if you know NaNoWriMo doesn't work for you, or that kind of like high pressure situation doesn't work for you, it is totally okay to not do it. And you shouldn't feel any pressure or guilt about that.
And that's why we're all Nano rebels.
Yeah.
I think you can make Nano work for you. And one of the pros is the community. The pro of everyone being in the spirit of novel writing at the same time as you, that it's so motivating. Like, we mentioned that the writing sprints on Twitter, the write-ins that you can go to, just like for Camp NaNoWriMo, it's your cabin. There's something about doing something at the same time as other people where you all have the same kind of motivation and goal that can be really inspiring. And I see that as a major pro of Nano. And that's why I encourage people to do the word count or the pace that works for them, because they can still benefit from that major pro without going all in.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's another question that I kind of want to debunk a little bit. The question is, can you still traditionally publish if you do NaNoWriMo?
You kind of broke up a bit there, so I didn't actually hear the question.
The question is, can you still traditionally publish if you do NaNoWriMo? Can you publish a NaNoWriMo?
Oh. Yeah, I did. So my debut novel was a Nano novel. Well, I wrote 50K of it during Nano. I wrote the other 50K after Nano, and then I revised it many, many times. Let's talk about some famous NaNoWriMo books. I actually think that it motivated me. A really famous one is The Night Circus. That was written during NaNoWriMo. So were at least the first 3 books in the Cinder series by Marissa Meyer. She wrote them during a single Nano. You don't have to do that. That is bonkers. There's more. Do you guys know any off the top of your head?
Dawn Green has written during NaNoWriMo. Stephanie Perkins has written during NaNoWriMo. Honestly, many authors who publish at least a book a year on that kind of schedule, even if they aren't participating in NaNoWriMo directly, they are often still writing their first drafts at a similar to NaNoWriMo pace.
Yeah. Susan Denner definitely does Nano. I don't know about specific books, but I know that she does Nano.
Fangirl was a NaNoWriMo novel, and the NaNoWriMo draft and the original draft, like not a lot of changes made. Like Rainbow wrote a lot of like what stayed in the final Fangirl draft during the first Nano she did. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing, like NaNoWriMo it's a tool. It's a first step. It's whatever you need to write. And you can traditionally publish, you can self-publish. Either way, it's a first draft, so you're going to revise. Because it's always like getting the words out and then you make the words all better. We've got a really good question here about how much we plan before Nano. We haven't even talked about that.
Was it time to fight?
So why don't you talk about your Preptober, which I didn't even know was a term until this year, and I feel like I've been missing out on life. So what's your Preptober like for Nano?
I mean, at this point, it's not really anything anymore. Like when I was first doing NaNoWriMo, I would get really into it and like spend October prepping and like put together a NaNoWriMo survival kit. and like go.
You're also an outliner.
Yeah, I'm also a hardcore outliner. When I did my last draft, like I did 3 days of planning and then just started drafting. So it was the closest to pantsing I've ever come to a novel.
Join me on the dark side.
It worked great though. Like I only want to write books like this now.
Did I win, Kat? Did I win? Did I get you?
I still outlined it. I just did it quickly.
So for me, my Prep-tober is not that much different from how I prep for any book because I am a pantser. I have to have base characters, base world, and an inciting incident with a general midpoint turn in mind. So like the thing that happens in Act 2 that changes everything, that's all I need to start a book, period. So that's what I prep before Nano. So like with Brightly Burning, I started 3 days into Nano. I actually cheated. I did already have like 2,500 words, but I still wrote 50K in November, and that's all that matters. That's the other thing. You can cheat at Nano. I support you. But I only knew the book, like how I was going to adapt the book because it is an existing story through Act 2. So that's all I had.
Yeah, I think I kind of mostly kind of do the same thing. Like last year, I spent about 2 weeks prepping. This year, I also spent just 3 days. And all I do is just I have to have my first act outlined before I jump in. So I don't have like the full thing completely outlined yet, but I need something so I know where I'm always working towards. So I actually really love this idea of outlining. So like for my Nano right now, I just have the first act outlined. So I'm going to finish drafting that, and then I'm going to start outlining what Act 2 is going to kind of look like, and then I'll write it.
I mean, my planning isn't that intense compared to your guys's, because like I'll know my like 25% plot point, my 50% midpoint, and like maybe my 75% plot twist in general. But I usually only have like the first act kind of solidly in mind. You know, like my idea for something that happens at the end might be like, there's a big fight and then they win and it's over. Which like, obviously that's not really planned out.
Like you're a plantser. You've always been a plantser.
So. But
plantser, it's the combo. It's both. It's both.
I do love structure so much. Like I do like the pantsing energy and like the get it out as fast as possible so that then you can like fix it. But structure is like, I need my structure skeleton in place.
Yeah, well, I actually don't really like the term pantser and planner, or pantser and outliner. So I think it's just kind of like really hard down the middle, and then you have to be one or the other. Like I talked about this once where I felt like I'm more of like a road mapper, where I like kind of know always where I'm headed, but I'm fine taking a lot of detours. That's not always planned. Well. Yeah. So it's like I am an outliner because I do have an idea of what's going on, but I also do things that I didn't ever plan while I'm drafting. So it's like a blend. Yeah.
Okay, our methods are really
very similar. I think we just solved all writing. I think we just settled all feuds among writers.
Because yeah, like I could change major things in my story. Like I've had things where halfway through the draft, I realized a major character was gonna die that like was not planned at all ahead. But I'm like, oh no, this is right. This character needs to die. Yeah, like I love outlining and I love structure, but it's not sacred. Like I could always change something up, and I'm always open to changing things up.
Yeah. Someone asked about craft books. This is your moment, guys. You two. Have fun.
They're all downstairs. Oh no.
I only like one. Like I'll only like ever mention one from now on, and it's Anatomy of Story. Like that's the holy Bible of writing, I feel like.
Which I'm going to read for you. I am actually going to read it.
Yeah, like I honestly felt like I learned more in that book than I did 4 years in school. Like
I've read many craft books over the years, and I just read Anatomy of a Story like within the last year, I think. And like after writing for like 8+ years and like studying craft for 8+ years, I read Anatomy of a Story and I was like, this just leveled me up as a writer more than like any other thing has in years.
Yeah.
Like it's a very good book. It is kind of like intermediate advanced. If it was the first writing craft book I ever read, I would have been like, whoa.
Yes. So I know, I can't even remember who it was, but there was someone I was talking to who told me that book freaked them out. And they actually had to stop reading it because they were so overwhelmed and they felt like a terrible writer. And what I will offer to people, the reason I bought it, the reason I'm going to read it, everyone should watch the YouTube channel Lessons from the Screenplay. Right? Yes, that's what it's called. My brain just blanked. It's one of my favorite YouTube channels, but he analyzes TV and movies mostly using John Truby Anatomy of Story. And I have learned so much from his videos, like leveling up my craft or my understanding of craft, mostly through the way that he interprets Truby's advice that I want to read it now. But that channel is a great digestible way to get the lessons kind of distilled in a very digestible way.
Yeah. Another one along with that is definitely Just Right. Definitely look up Just Right too.
Also, another channel along the same lines, Hello Future Me. He talks a lot about that stuff, especially surrounding like How to Train Your Dragon and Avatar: The Last Airbender, which are like two series franchises that I love. So I love seeing how like the story is applied to that. Yeah.
It all comes back to YouTube, guys. Don't read books. I'm kidding. Read books. And I think it's worth.
I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
Because they all are talking about like movies and TV shows and like visual media, but you can learn like storytelling. There are differences across the mediums, but you can learn so much about storytelling by studying other mediums and seeing like what works for that medium and how you can translate that into novels, fiction, like writing fiction.
Yeah. And it's worth shouting out Save the Cat, love or hate it, because I do think the beat sheet can change lives, even if I really hated that book. I did. But I bought the one for novels by Jessica Brody, and I'm looking forward to reading it because I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. I like the idea of the beat sheet. He has garbage opinions on movies, Blake Schneider, R.I.P.
Yeah, I think Save the Cat was one of the first craft books I read, and it really was like a good introduction, and like it gave me a lot of like base information. But I see a comment from Brooke here again that says, Brandon Sanderson's college classes. Those are a fantastic resource. Brandon Sanderson teaches at a university in Utah. He does a creative writing course, and the classes are recorded and then uploaded in full to YouTube. You can watch his class lectures and like attend his class. And yeah, that's a great writing course for someone who's like new to studying craft. I would definitely recommend that.
Another oldie but goodie that I recommend that helped me, it's really old. Just Google Jim Butcher's live journal. Years and years ago, at least 10 years ago, he just did a bunch of live journal posts all about story structure and character arcs and plot arcs, and it's all structure. And those are probably the only, other than Save the Cat craft, things I've ever read. So those are helpful. And they helped me develop my like story curve method. It's not mine, but that's where I kind of got taught story curves, and that has really helped me. He doesn't call them that, but that's what I call them. So, right. Someone asked about our, a little bit further up, our greatest weaknesses in drafting. I think that's a really interesting topic because I think Rimo exacerbate those or help you overcome them.
Okay. I think Nanowrimo facilitates my greatest drafting weakness, which is how I jump around so much. And like, it's hard for me to get an actual straight through draft. Like the draft that I wrote in September and October, I call it a draft 0 because it's not actually like a straight through coherent draft. It's like pieces where I've jumped around and brackets where it's like a scene goes here that I don't want to write right now, so I'm skipping it for now, kind of thing. And then like I just have trouble doing the straight through draft after that. Like I keep working on revisions and rewriting drafts that I've done, and I feel like I've been revising Storyteller for like 5 years now. Because I jump around too much. I have trouble going straight through.
Well, one of my weaknesses I always have when I'm drafting is that I go through like a lot of self-doubt, and it's like I really get really low in my mental health. It's just like, wow, I really suck at writing. But NaNoWriMo actually helps with that because I don't have time to think about that because I'm just writing and writing and writing. So that's definitely one of my weaknesses that I don't ever experience during Nano because I just don't think about it.
I'm torn between my greatest outlining weaknesses being white room syndrome and pantsing itself, meaning that I don't figure out what my story is until I hit the third act. I keep doing it. And Nano helps both of those. White room syndrome because I can't worry about the fact that I'm bad at describing things if I'm fast. And same thing with if I'm not figuring out what the book really is till I hit 60K, what's great is that Nano gets me there faster, which is nice. Because like I try not to beat myself up too much, but I gotta say it's kind of great that I was able to figure out what Brightly Birding was within 6 weeks, basically. Whereas on my new one, took me 8 months before I knew what my book was, and I'm like, was that time wasted? I don't know, maybe. I'm fine. But those are my weaknesses, and Nano helps.
All right. We're about at 12:45, so I think we'll go for a little bit longer. If you guys have any final questions you want to ask us, bring those in.
Someone did ask about doing fan fiction for Nano, and I say write whatever works for you. All writing is valid writing. And honestly, if you can write a 50K fanfic, that's amazing. Do it.
Yeah.
And I love fan fiction. I used to write it. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, you can do fanfic for Nano. You can do short stories for NaNoWriMo, or like a poem a day or something like that. Like there's so many options for Nano. You can do any genre. You can do nonfiction. Yeah. You can write a blog post a day and just like join in on the NaNoWriMo festivities.
Do we plan our endings going in? Outliners, Kat?
I mean, vaguely. I usually will have in mind, like, I tend to write like happy story. Like my stories tend to have happy endings. So like usually I know like they win at the end. They solve whatever mystery they're doing. They accomplish whatever their goal is. But I won't have the details worked out, like how or where or like what exactly happens. But I'll know like in general kind of where it's going.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way as Kat. And then usually I never know what the like final ending image is until about when I'm starting to get there. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is how it needs to end. But I just know the general idea of the ending once I kind of go into it. But it might change too. So it's just kind of, I don't know. It might change, but
it's good to have like a ending in mind, but it doesn't have to be the one you ultimately go with. Just so you have like kind of an end point that you're like heading towards.
Right.
Yeah, I know my emotional ending. So there's always a character arc, an emotional growth arc I have in mind for my main character. So I know where they have to end up. And also, cheater, retellings are beautiful because you know how they end because they're based on things. So I always know, especially because I write romance, it's going to end happily, just like Kat said. It's a happy ending. But yeah, I just like you, Lainey, I don't actually know what the final image is. I don't know what the big confrontation scene is usually, like the Dark Night of the Soul. I don't know those ahead of time. And I do figure those out as I go. But I do have to have an emotional arc in mind to start. That's essentially my ending. I have to know where the characters are going.
Yeah. And I also just learned this from the past couple of years. I always used to end on cliffhangers, but you're not really supposed to do that. So I have really had to train my brain to end it where things are definitely tied up and there's still kind of a hint for a future story if that should happen. But it was really hard for me to kind of realize that I need to make sure my drafts or my books kind of end nicely or wrapped up.
Do you write series or standalones?
Well, I mean, okay, so one of Alexa can probably say this too, but when you're querying agents or when you're trying to get published, you should always have your first book be something that could stand on itself in case a publisher doesn't want to pick up the rest of the series. So yeah, I never used to do that. I'm like, cliffhanger. But I've definitely changed that. So now I always make sure that I tie up everything and that the book can stand on its own, even though I secretly want it to be more books, but I need to make sure that the first book is complete.
Yeah.
Right.
Stands on its own, just in case. But I used to write series, so my first 2 books I tried to sell were supposed to be trilogies, and now I'm like embracing the standalone. It's kind of a beautiful thing. I love it. I'm like, I'm free. We had multiple people ask about essentially writer's block. Like, how do you write when you don't want to write, when you're stuck? What are your guys' best tips? And was specifically for NaNoWriMo we can focus on.
This is a hard one for NaNoWriMo because I found that writer's block is more of a symptom of something else. Like if you feel writer's block, then like maybe your story is going in the wrong direction and you haven't like identified that yet, but you can like feel it and you're like, I feel blocked, but you haven't like diagnosed like what went awry yet. And that's difficult with NaNoWriMo because you don't have time to like sit there and like prescribe what's wrong with your book. You have to keep going.
Exactly.
So that's difficult. That's what happened. That's why I failed NaNoWriMo the times that I failed. I've come to something like that and I was like, oh, 10,000 words ago, I was supposed to go in a different direction. So crap. Like at that point, like, do you keep writing so you can win NaNoWriMo, or do you delete 10,000 words and go back? Like,
yeah,
I don't have good advice for this.
Yeah, in the moment, like on like a micro level, I always recommend showers. Showers break me out of creative blocks almost like magic, like clockwork. Very rarely does a shower not work. Meaning, so that gets me by on a micro level. Like, I'm stuck on this scene. What should happen next? Shower. Or it could be taking a walk for you. It's whatever. It's like a mindless activity. You're physically doing something, but you don't have to think about it, and you're alone. Those are good things to do, good activities to do. I'm writing is hard generally. I recommend setting up writing triggers. Specifically for Nano, a playlist can be really helpful. A playlist that gets you in the mood of the story or just makes you want to write. Like, I have certain movie scores that if they start playing, I'm like, oh, I should be writing something really dramatic right now. I've trained myself over many years. The reward system, Lainey's reward system, like, can help when you're like, when you just don't want to write. But you're right, Kat, like, when the problem is that you made a wrong turn or you don't know what to do next, the question is, do you keep going? Do you write garbage? And I don't have a good answer for that.
Hard.
Sometimes it does mean you stop Nano and you go, you know what? I'm glad I have 20,000 words, but I have to figure something out and I have to stop.
Yeah.
I've done that too.
It gets tricky. That's what happened with one of the first NaNoWriMos I did. Maybe it wasn't. No, it wasn't the first. Was it the first? I don't remember now. It was 10 years ago. But I like got to 20,000 words, and I realized, or I got to like 30,000 words, and I realized I should have made a different decision at 20K. And instead of like going back or like writing as if I had made that change, I just kept writing in the wrong direction. So when NaNoWriMo ended, I had like 30,000 useless words that were just all scrapped, and I never revisited that project because I was like, it felt like too much of a mess. So yeah, it's hard. I don't have good advice for that.
Has this happened to you?
Like writer's block during Nano?
Yeah.
Well, like last year was like my favorite NaNoWriMo just because like I was so on top of it and I killed it. And I never experienced that because I was just so pushing myself to like get the words out and get the draft done and have something, like have a manuscript of my own. But I think in the past, it mostly just comes down to mental health writer's block, where it's like I just don't want to write. And that's just something I need to be like, knock it off and just start writing. Like, do it. Open up your laptop and just start writing. Because once you get going, it gets better. But it's always like physically sitting down and getting in your chair and getting into the mindset of you need to start writing. That's always like sometimes the hardest for me when I'm going through mental health writer's block.
Like if you're sitting down.
And I will also say very sparingly, every once in a while, you can take a day off. during Nano. You have to make up the words, but sometimes you do have to take a day off.
Yeah. And that's totally okay to do.
Yeah.
Because yeah, even if you end the month with, you take weekends off and you end the month with 40,000 words instead of 50, you still have 40,000 words and you retained your sanity because you got to take weekends off.
All progress is progress. And I think that's an important thing to take away from Nano, no matter how it goes, to look on the bright side. You wrote something. We had a few like kind of meta questions. People asking if we're going to do this again. Yes, this is a bi-weekly discussion show. Every 2 weeks, we're going to do this, or we're going to try to do this every 2 weeks.
Starting with every 2 weeks because November and December are kind of busy, chaotic times. And we're going to see how it goes from there. But yeah, this is episode 1 here on my channel. Episode 2 is going to be not next Sunday, but the next Sunday on Alexa's channel. And then 2 Sundays after that will be on Lainey's channel.
Yep. Yeah. And we do not plan on doing live sprint Nano write-ins, but there are some amazing channels who are already doing those that you can watch. By the Brook is in the chat. She's doing one. There are other people doing them. I saw some people mention. So if you're in the live chat right now, shout out if you're doing live streams for Nano, write-ins, sprints, etc. Because those are great tools. You don't just have to do it on Twitter. People do them on YouTube as well.
Yeah, there's a couple other people who do like the Nanowrimo live shows like that, which is awesome. But we wanted to do more of like a discussion live show, not a writing one.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all great. Sprints are all great. Yeah. Okay, I think that is just about gonna do it for our live show today. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this chat, for this premiere episode of Novelty Show. We'll be meeting in 2 weeks on Alexa's channel. I've also linked Lainey and Alexa's channels down in the description so you guys can go follow them if you're not already subscribed. We also have a Novelty Twitter account that we don't really use a lot, but if you want to stay up to date on just like show times, that information will be there as well. Thank you so much for coming. We will see you in 2 weeks on Alexa's channel.
Yay. We're going to talk about something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'll announce it on the Twitter.
Yes.
Bye.